NCERT Science, Class 6, Chapter 5, Separation of Substance. Let us get into the chapter now. The word mixture means two different or more substances are put together. Now, that means if we want to separate the substance that are mixed together, we do separation in different way for different mixtures. For example, let us take a tea leaf and dust from tea. It is filtered using a filter, right? Butter is churned from curd using a churner that we use at home. When cotton fiber is removed from the seeds by ginning, this we saw in the previous chapter itself. Some mixtures are separated by hand picking, like the stones in the grains that our parents used to do at home, right? Our mothers used to do at home. So, different materials are separated differently. Now comes a question why we need to separate substance. Sometimes we separate substance to throw away the impurity. Some useful components would be there. We might use a useful component. In some cases, both the substance which are separated would be useful. So let us see few examples over here. Separate stone from rice. Here the rice is a useful component while the stone is thrown away, which has been separated and thrown away. Then churning milk to obtain butter. Both of them are useful, right? Where the butter is used and the buttermilk is also used. Sometimes the impurity alone is thrown away. Separate tea leaves to remove impurities or harmful components. Otherwise, if both are useful, then we use the tea leaf for plants, for growing plants like the rose plant. And the liquid that we get from the tea leaf, we use it for as a decoction for tea, right? So separation, sometimes it is useful, sometimes the substance which are separated is harmful and it is thrown away. Now we'll see the different methods of separation. Hand picking is one such method. Now what happens? For example, we've been given a gunny bag full of rice or wheat or pulse, and then if we ask to remove the impurity from it, large sized dirt, husk and impurity from the grains are being removed by hand. So this is one type of or method of separation. Threshing is a process of removing the grains from the stalk of a plant. The grains from the stalk are dried in the sun. Then they are beaten up and the grains get away from the stalk. Threshing is done with the help of bullocks. In olden days, even elephants were said to be used in some of the villages. And now, for large quantities of grains to be threshed, machines are used. Threshing is a process of removing the grains from the stalk of a plant. The grains from the stalk are dried in the sun. Then the next method of separation is winnowing. Winnowing is nothing but the separation of a mixture of a heavier particle from the lighter particle. The mixture of the heavier and the lighter particle, that is the grains and the husk, are put on a plate or a paper and it is raised shoulder level. Now, when the plate or the paper is tilted a little and when air is blown or wind is blown, the lighter husk is carried away by the wind and the heavier grains form a heap near the winnowing platform, like shown in the picture. The separated husk is used for many purposes such as cattle feed. The next method of separation is called as sieving. During sieving, the flour is poured out of the hole on a plate where big impurities stay on the sieve itself. In flour mill, big impurities, stones and husk are removed from the wheat by sieving it with large slanting sieve. Similar slanting sieve is used in construction process like the one shown in the picture, where stones and pebbles are removed from the smooth sand. The other methods of separation are sedimentation, decantation, and filtration. Now, what is sedimentation? When we mix some material to a beaker of water and allow the beaker to stay for some time, the undissolved particle which is at the bottom of the beaker are called as sediments, and the water which is there on top could be separated. Now, separate the undissolved particle which is on the heavier ones which are found at the bottom of the beaker. That process is called as sedimentation, and removing the water with the dissolved particle and the dust is called as decantation. These two methods are used for separating two liquids. There's another method which is called as filtration. In filtration, we can separate a solid from a liquid. For example, use a cloth or a filter paper or a strainer for filtration. Example, paneer is strained from the mixture of water. Fruit juice could be separated. The pulp and the fruit juice could be separated. Tea leaf from the tea decoction could be separated. This is called as filtration. The next important method is evaporation. Evaporation is conversion of water into water vapor. This process happens continuously when water is present and heat is applied to the water. Now, it is used to separate a dissolved solid from water. Example, salt is got from the seawater using this process. Common salt is got after purifying the salt got from seawater. The other important method of separation is condensation. In condensation, the water vapor is again converted into water. For example, make a kettle of water boil and near the spout keep a chilled plate. Now, when the water vapor reaches the plate, the water vapor changes to drops of water. This is called as condensation. We can use more than one method of separation also in our process for separating different substances. For example, common salt is got from the seawater using decantation, filtration, evaporation, and finally condensation. We saw all the methods of separation. Now we have to know what is a word called saturation. Can water dissolve any amount of a substance? For example, you want to dissolve salt, and you're trying to dissolve a little more salt to a beaker of water. Now, after some time, the water will not dissolve the salt. Some of the salt remain at the bottom of the beaker. Now, this says the solution is saturated. Only it can dissolve certain amount of the material which is soluble. The rest is settled down. This is called as saturated solution. Class 6, Chapter 5, Separation of Substance is being explained. Hope you all understood it well. Thank you for listening. Please like, share and subscribe. Let us all meet in the next chapter.